When was the last time you took a leap of faith, trusting that everything is going to work out? Do you crave growth, or are you merely content with the status quo? If you want more out of your life, out of your career, and out of your relationships, you are in the right place. Take the leap and discover how to create a life by design rather than living it by default. Real success starts with you. Now here's your host, Colleen Biggs.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Take the Leap. I am your host, Colleen Biggs. As always, I bring you just masterful experts to the platform for you to learn every single week, sometimes twice a week, depending upon how quick we drop these podcast episodes, for you to take what you learn so that you're able to apply that to your relationships, to your daily lives, to your career, to your business. And that way you can design the life that you're wanting to have and not live in it by default. So if you're not growing, you're dying. We say it all the time on this podcast. It's all about the growth. And in our last podcast, episode number 138, we talked a lot about changes, transformation, filling your mind, reading books in the morning. We had a long conversation on that. And how are you strengthening your voice, whether it be your inner voice, your outer voice? We're really going to dive into that today and talk about the do's and don'ts for effective, daring conversations. This is for everyone who owns a business for sure. There's a lot, and sometimes it's a daring conversation you have to have with a daughter or a son or a spouse or a friend. I've had people say, how do I have that conversation with a friend? So Darlene Hawley is here today. We're going to dive into all about strengthening that voice so you can ease into having those conversations. But before we do, I want to thank the sponsor of today's show, Hawley Spine Center. What sets our office apart from other offices is our focus and expertise in treating degenerative spinal conditions, including disc disease, bulging herniated disc, spinal stenosis, neuropathy, sciatica pain, tingling, and numbness in the arms, hands, legs, and feet, as well as severe and chronic neck pain and headaches. I've actually been to them and they have corrected my neck pain, and I am like living pain-free. So it's amazing. They specialize in corrective care, not just the treatment. That's what I'm saying. I'm like totally healed of the symptoms and physical medicine modality. So in most cases, they actually use pre and post images to determine structural improvements. So if you or someone you know is suffering from neck or back pain or any of the conditions that I mentioned earlier, and you haven't experienced chiropractic in an integrative corrective care office, then please contact Hawley Spine Center at 480-809-4700. And they are in Arizona at hawleyspinecenter.com. But I will tell you that they have said if you contact them, they will get you in contact with somebody local in your area that does corrective care as well. So if you're struggling with any of that, please be sure to reach out to them for you to be able to live pain-free like I am today. I didn't realize how messed up I was, Darlene. It was kind of weird. So Darlene Hawley is a speaker. She's a podcast host. She's a business coach and a communication expert who shows ambitious, heart-centered entrepreneurs and rising business leaders how to speak up, stand out, and make more of an impact. Oh, a girl after my own heart. Let me start right now. Her genius is twofold. I love when we talk about geniuses. Darlene shows entrepreneurs 2+ years into their business how to deepen their business foundation and go after visibility so they can share their message with the world, attract dream clients. Always good to attract them, right? Not go fishing for them, and have the impact, freedom, and flexibility they desire. Plus, she supports organizational leaders and their teams in strengthening their inner and outer voice so they can speak up for themselves. Darlene, welcome to the show.
Hi, Colleen. Thanks so much for having me.
Isn't it so great to hear all about your accolades and who you are and what you stand for?
I always laugh and I'm like, did I write that? I'm like, oh, I did write that. That's what I do. Thank you for saying it so elegantly.
Yeah, I love it. I think that it's so important for us to hear that back every once in a while. And sometimes it feels a little long because you sit there and you have to listen to it if someone else is saying it and they're like, hold on, there's more. And you're like, no, we're good. Let's just move it along,
That was my short one. My long
Yeah.
one, I feel you. I'm like, oh my gosh, are you still talking about those things?
Yeah. But, I think every once in a while we need to sit back and enjoy the successes and what we've built, because thoughts are things, and you built all of this, Darlene, out of nothing. This was not handed to you, because I read that you started your business after losing your mom because you realized how short life was. Do we want to talk about that at all on the show today?
Yeah, we can talk a little bit about it. So I used to work in retail management. I was a single mom. My oldest son just turned 28, which is kind of crazy, but I was a teen mom. It was just myself, and I was raising my son, and I was working retail management, and I had a good thing going in retail. I got promoted really quickly inside the organization, and I just kept feeling this, like, I guess it's mom guilt, right? Like when I was at work, I was thinking about my son, and I felt like I was missing opportunities. And because it was retail, I was working nights and weekends, and my schedule was ever changing. And I just felt like I couldn't enroll him in soccer or do like the things that I wanted to do with him. And then when I was home with my son, my demands of my store were so heavy that I felt like I was missing things at the store, and like I had all this pressure. And so my son was 5 years old, and my mom and him were in a car accident, and we lost my mom that day, and I almost lost my son. And I thank God every single day that he is still with me and that he is thriving. But I learned so much about myself during, I don't know, like the 6 months after losing my mom. Like I just got really.
How old were you, Darlene? How old were you?
22.
Oh, you were really young. And how old was your mom?
She was only 49.
And it was a car accident, you said?
Yeah, she was, they were driving across town to run some errands, and a tow truck ran a stop sign in a completely open area where there was like a desert lot, like plenty of room, where he should have seen that the intersection was coming and that there was tons of cars. Like it's a very busy road in Las Vegas, and he just blew right through that stop sign and hit right at her door.
Oh, no.
So yeah, like life just got flipped upside down for me. Like my mom was one of my, like she was my best friend. We were super close. My son was with her at the time. Like she was, they were doing grandma things and having fun and hanging out. And I just spoke to them that morning, and it was like surreal that like life can change so quickly. And I really realized during that time, I'm like, life is short. Like we have zero idea how long we have here. We can have the best intentions. Like I always say that I want to live to be like 100. I was like, but you don't know what life's going to give to us. Like so many people, like life is short. And I just remember thinking at that point, like I liked my job. I liked what I did. I was really good at it. I had kept getting promoted and was like on track to go to district. I was like, I don't want this life though. Like, this is not the life that I want. This is not the schedule I want. It's not the things that I want to be doing. And I started searching for something different. And I ended up buying a franchise and becoming a business coach, which had you asked me when I was looking for a career, I didn't even know what a business coach was. Like, I actually laughed when I went to the interview. I was like, what is a business coach? Like, tell me more about this coaching thing. And as I was talking to the girl that I was interviewing with, I was like, oh my gosh, I've been coaching my whole life. I'm like, you're talking my love language right now. Like everything that I do with my employees on my team, when I thought back to being in high school and even junior high, like I was always the girl that everybody came to and wanted to share all their things. And I would help them figure out like what next steps to take or where to go or what to do. And so it was kind of nice that I didn't know my passion had a name. Like I didn't know coaching was a thing at that point. It wasn't.
Coaching was for soccer and football and baseball. And I always say, when everyone tried to label me. So that's what happened when I became an entrepreneur. They were like, oh, you're a business coach. I'm like, I've never been a business coach. I've been a business consultant. I've been a new business I've been a consultant, but I've never heard the word coach before. And that was kind of like the buzzword, I guess, And so I was kind of shocked by it too. Like, I don't know what that is.
I mean, and this was 17 years ago, which
I
guess it was like 17. It's been a decent amount of time, but it doesn't feel like it's been that.
Yeah. Life coaches were not like the in thing back then. Oh. Coaching wasn't an in thing.
I remember going to networking events and I would be like, hi, my name's Darlene Hawley. Oh, it wasn't actually Hawley back then, but I used my maiden name. And people would go like, oh, what sport is that? And I'm like, no, like I'm a business coach. Like I come in and I support you in your business to help you, go to the next level and bring consistent income in and, hire the right people onto your teams. And like, I explain all of it and they're like, oh, so not basketball. Okay. Like they just,
I mean, but it would just be like,
to
me, it's like an NFL football coach does the exact same thing, right? It's kind of what we do in your business. Yeah. I love that. I love that. So
like Tiger Woods has a coach that helps.
Oh my gosh, they all do.
Yeah. I'm like, so basically I'm doing the same thing, but instead of it being for your individual performance, I'm coming in and working with you and your team to get your business to the next level and take it to that next place.
At our Empower and Elevate conference we had on November 17th in 2023, one of the ladies on the stand, she was a panelist and she is a real estate agent. And she said, I have a coach. And she said, everyone should have a coach. It's the number one thing I do that keeps me on track with my goals. I'm tied to my why and where I'm going is having that coach and that accountability. And I thought that was really cool. It doesn't matter what you do, where you're at, where your success level is. We all need them. I have them. You have them. We all have them.
I thought I didn't need a coach for a while. This was probably like 10, 12 years ago. Like I got a coach when I first started my business and I was like, okay, I'm like doing pretty well. Like, I think things are good. And I like canceled my contract with my coach. Worst decision ever. Like within like 6 months, I was like, all right, you need a coach, girl. Like, what are you doing? Like, even though we know what to do and we know how to do the things that we're supposed to be doing and we have best intentions, I'm a big planner. Like I've got a whole strategy plan that I map out, kind of the big goals for the year, but then I like 90-day plan every 90 days to kind of keep myself on track. And I was like, I need a coach. Like, what am I thinking not having a coach? Like I saw my income dropped, my performance dropped.
Yeah.
I was like not on track to reach the goals that I had set for that year. And then so I brought it right back and I was like, all right, that's like number one rule. The first thing that you do,
it is
make sure you have a coach in your business, and
pays for itself. It always pays for itself. So I never understand why people are like, oh, I can't afford a coach. I'm like, it's an upfront investment that absolutely pays for itself. So, and I always say to even my own clients, and I'll tell them, you should never hire a coach that doesn't have a coach. Yeah. Because there's something wrong there.
And I love the word you just used because I think it's super important. Like it's an investment. Like you're investing in yourself. It's not a price tag. It's not going to cost you $5 million. Like it's an investment in your business and in yourself. And when you take that responsibility on yourself, like I'm going to always have a coach for myself. Like you up level, like you're already playing the game at such a better advantage than everybody else who's out there doing something similar to you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like when I came out of corporate America, I had become a personal trainer a little bit before then because I had been a black belt in Taekwondo and then I became a personal trainer. Figured out I don't really like to help people work out and teach classes. I like working out, but I don't want to teach people how to do it. So I was like, yeah, not for me. But that's why people would hire me. They all know what to do. They all know how to work out, but they hire you as a personal trainer to be the personal accountability person for them, to give them help with their goals, hold them accountable, give them direction. That's exactly the same thing. I was a personal training coach. That's what you would call it, right? So it's in every field. And when we're talking about things like having daring conversations, we're talking about things about strengthening our voice. There's things that we don't know how to do it. And in the last podcast, we were talking about why we read books and why we listen to podcasts. And it's all about gaining that knowledge. I always say hire someone that's like 5-10 steps ahead of you, like right there, right? So they can teach you how to do what they're doing and you're able to make that progress as well. So when we're talking about strengthening the inner voice, is that like what we say to ourselves? And then the outer voice is how we stand up for ourselves and what we say to other people. Is that what that means? Yeah,
absolutely. So whether you're an entrepreneur who's running a business or you're a leader inside of an organization, most of us have some level of what most people call like imposter syndrome. We ask ourselves questions like, who am I to step up on this stage and speak at this conference? Who am I to, create this course and teach people how to do these amazing things? Who am I to do like whatever? Like we ask all those questions. Am I worthy enough? Am I good enough? Do I deserve the spot to be here? And that's our inner critic beating us up. I like to think of the inner critic it makes me think of the cartoons, like where you have like the angel on one shoulder who's telling you, you've got this, you're doing amazing, like keep going, don't stop. And then you have that little devil on your other shoulder who's like, no, you don't deserve to be here. Like other people can do this, but you can't do this. And so that inner voice piece, when I'm working with the leaders and with entrepreneurs, like it comes up in almost every single conversation I have. They're like, it's the confidence. Like, do we have the confidence to walk into a room, onto a stage, or into any conversation and really start to speak up for the ideas and issues and matters that really mean the most to us and are going to help us make the impact that we want to make while we're on this earth. And the inner voice is something that most of us, it's like a different demon at every level, right? Like every time we get promoted or we meet our next sales goals, like, and we want to like push ourselves to scale to the next level, like that inner critic comes back up. And so we have to learn how to play nicely with ourselves, how to talk to ourselves and really take ownership of how we're feeling in those moments and control the thoughts that we're having. A lot of my clients will tell me, like, you know, like if you look in the mirror, like I'll ask them, like, if you look in the mirror, what do you see? And typically I would say like 75% of my clients are women or identify as women. And they say, you know, just my butt looks big, or like, I don't like the way my cheekbones are, or I wish I had fuller lips, or I wish I had a new hairstyle. Like we beat ourselves up. When was the last time you looked in the mirror and you're like telling yourself all the amazing things about yourself, the things that you love, the things that make you unique? Because most of the things that we put ourselves down for, like that gives our inner critic mayhem. Like it lets us go out of control. But if we look in the mirror and we tell ourselves, like, I am worthy, I am good, I am beautiful, I have the perfect cheekbones and the perfect lip structure for who I am, and this gives me like the characteristics of myself that make me super unique, that make me stand out.
Yeah, I love that you said that. And, you know, Mel Robbins, that book that she just came out with probably like a year ago, was it the High Five book? That's another thing, you know, you look at yourself in the mirror. And when I get done a workout, I work out on a mirror. It's called Lululemon mirror. And I high five myself on the mirror. And immediately when my hand touches the mirror and I can see myself high five me, I get emotional. Like immediately I get this surge of emotion of this, congratulations, you did it. Like we high five other people all the time and give it away, right? We give away that cheerlead, that champion, that woohoo, good for you, that energy. But how often do we ever high five ourselves and give it back to ourselves?
Very rarely. Yeah, most of us very rarely. I love that you have the mirror there, and just like that palm to palm touch is connecting with yourself at a different level than most of us allow ourselves to even get to. Like most of us, like we do the surface work. We only want to know just enough about ourselves that we feel like, okay, we're safe. But if we go deeper, like what are we going to stir up? What emotions are in there? What things happen, you know, from our childhood, from our teenage years? Like sometimes we build walls, and we build really high walls, so it's almost impossible to get back to them. It's one of the reasons why I talk with a lot of my clients. Like I want to normalize, like I want everybody to have a coach, but I also want to normalize therapy. Like there's so many things that have gone on in our lives, especially when we were children, and just, you know, growing up.
Every single one of us, every single individual on earth.
Yeah. I mean, before the pandemic hit, there was a stat that said 70% of adults have experienced some form of trauma in their life. And if you add a pandemic to it, now we've all experienced some sort of trauma. It's in some shape or fashion, and some are way deeper and have what I would call like a big T trauma experience. And some of them might be like smaller T, littler things that have happened. But all of those things impact our inner voice. It impacts how we talk to us, how we talk to ourselves, how we show up for ourselves. And so when I'm working with my clients, like we dig into like, what's that inner voice telling you? What are you saying to yourself? Like you would never walk up to somebody on the street and just start telling them everything negative about them and how all these horrible things. Yet when we look in front of a mirror, or if we're like trying to do something that feels scary, or, you know, that is bringing up a lot of sensation in our body, we're the first person to beat ourselves up and put ourselves down and make us not want to walk into that space.
You said something that was very key earlier, Darlene, and you said control your thoughts, right? And I think that, well, I want to dig into that in a minute. And I've done this exercise once And I can only do it once because unless I have a whole new set, right, new set of clients, you can't do it again with them because they're like, no, I know what you're doing. And I just said, write everything down that you don't like about yourself. All the negative thoughts you have, just write them down. And I gave them 5 minutes. Then I paired them up. And I said, now you're going to talk to this other person and you're going to talk to them that they're you. And you're going to say all of these things to them. They immediately were bawling and crying. And I can't say this to her. This is horrible. I can't say this to her. The other person was crying. And well, why do you say it to yourself then? I mean, it was just this, we just were all crying in a room because they felt so bad. And then they realized how horrible it was of the thoughts that they had about themselves and how much they were beating themselves down. So when we talk about controlling our thoughts, what does that mean for you? Like, how do you work with your clients and helping them control those thoughts?
Yeah, a lot of it is getting them to do activities kind of similar like what you were talking about. Like a lot of times we're talking them out if it's one-on-one coaching. I would say like over half my clients are one-on-one. And then I do a lot of team building exercises around this type of work as well. But it's getting us a chance to write out or speak out all the things that we're saying about ourselves in a negative way. And then how do we flip those into a positive? So who am I to walk in and speak on this stage? Like there's a lot of other people that, do similar work to me. Like there's already people in the market space that are having similar conversations. Like I could easily say, like I talk a lot about showing up as your authentic self and being vulnerable. I could easily say that Brene Brown has already capitalized the market. Like what does my voice have to, like, what am I going to bring to this market? And I could say, like, I'm not going to do it. Like, I'm just going to give up and do something different because Brene's got it. But is that true?
No, it's not. Because not everyone's going to listen to what Brene Brown has to say or how she says it.
And every single one of us, I think, and I 100% believe this, like each of us have a unique gift and a different skill set, a different life experience. And we're going to all bring our own story, our own message, our own unique viewpoints to the conversation. And not everybody is going to be for us. We would, like in my bio, when you read like the attract piece, like we want to attract the right clients, the right people to work with us, whether we're entrepreneurs or maybe it's even just like we're going to invite the right and attract the right friendships, the right relationships, the people that we want to be around. We're going to attract those people. We're also going to repel. I'm a big fan of repelling. Like we're not for everybody, and that is okay.
Yes.
There's plenty of people that I'm like, you're a great person. Like I don't spend a lot of time with them. Like they're not my people, and that's okay. Like I don't beat myself up because I don't love every single person's personality. And I'm not like, oh, I want to hang out with this person all the time. So why are we getting beat up? Like if somebody doesn't want to work with us and they unsubscribe from our newsletter list.
See you, Felicia. That's
yeah. Bye, Felicia.
That's what I say. Like, you know what? I'm totally fine with that. The only, I would say the only one that I struggle with is when my members of my community will say, hey, I didn't know about XYZ. And then I'll look at the CRM and I'll say, well, you unsubscribed from our emails like a long time ago, but you paid to be a member. So you don't know about anything that we're doing, any events, any opportunities. You don't get to participate at all because all the communication comes through email, or social media. And they're like, oh, I saw it on social media, but I never got an email. I'm like, well, maybe you need to subscribe again. But you're right. Like, I think it's okay. There are not going to be people listening to my podcast that have a different belief of the way that I talk about designing your life. There are probably podcasts of people out there that really do believe that life happens a specific way and you have to just go with it. And maybe that's what their podcast is about. And I say, bull crap. Thoughts are things. You design your entire reality. They don't believe that. So I'm not going to attract those people to my podcast or to anything that I do.
And that's why one of the things I talk a lot about is what are your values? What's really important to you? People are going to connect with your values. So if you're starting a business or if you're a leader on a team, like let people know what you stand for, what things are important to you. And like you were just saying, like you almost want to get up on your soapbox, so to speak, and share from your heart, share things that are your perspective. And that's going to it's going to really attract the right people. And then you're going to be able to feel empowered to like that your inner voice is going to start talking to you in a nicer way because you're showing up as your true self. You're really being authentic. You're being real. You're being vulnerable in those moments. And then when you do start to speak, which is when your outer voice comes into play, and you're going to have those daring conversations with a colleague or somebody who's on your team, or have a sales negotiation and ask for a big contract or whatever it is that you're putting yourself out there for. Like when you have those daring conversations, all of a sudden, they're not difficult. A lot of people call them difficult conversations, right? Like I have to have this difficult conversation with my spouse, or I have to have a difficult conversation with my one of my team members, my employees or whatnot. Like, what if you just switch that mindset and it's not a difficult conversation? It's actually a daring conversation where you're going to be bold and let somebody know, like, hey, yesterday during that meeting, when you said XYZ, it really made me feel like blank. I'd love to learn more from you about what you were thinking when you shared that information at the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And let the other person talk and really listen, not try to have a rebuttal because they start saying something and you already want to jump in and like you're planning what you're going to say next, but really sit back and listen and get curious and ask a couple more questions and learn for yourself. Like, okay, this is how I took it. This is what you're saying is how you were trying to say it to me. Like actually take in that conversation. If we could do more of that,
open-minded,
it changes the paradigm for how conversations happen with our team members, with our spouses, with our kids, because all of a sudden we're not just coming in one-sided. And I'm like telling Colleen, you said this thing and you made me feel blank, and like I'm attacking you, right? But if I say, hey, Colleen, last time we met, you said blank and I felt blank. I'd love to hear, like, tell me more about where you came from with that. Like, I actually sit back and listen. We're going to have a conversation. And it's not just going to be, you left your socks on the floor again and I can't handle it. And like, I'm done.
I'm so glad you said that because I'm in business with some of my kids and that is always tough. And I had a conversation with a daughter-in-law of mine and I probably spent the first 15 minutes. She was very angry and I listened and had some apologies. And we probably talked for about an hour. And by the end of the conversation, we were fine. There was a lot of misunderstandings and a lot of thoughts that were being created by self that wasn't really true. And then because of lack of communication, that person didn't understand or know. And so it was like, okay, everybody learned from the conversation. And then we ended up being just fine by the end. I think those are the those are the ones that we're talking about, the daring conversations, because some people are afraid to have those. I know she was afraid to have it with me, but I welcomed it and opened it and knew I could handle whatever the conversation needed to be, because not having the conversation to me is worse and is more hurtful and causes a lot of pain versus having the conversation and everything gets talked about. And it's just amazing how well that can turn out in the end. And I do believe that my husband and I will agree to disagree sometimes. And I'll say, well, I think we just need to agree to disagree on that, hun, and move on from it. Because, we could hash this out for hours, but let's just agree to disagree. Fine. Let's move forward, and no one's hurt or anything by that. But I'm assuming after your mom passed away and you went on to changing your life, you were now doing something different. You were now a franchise owner. You had to earn all of your own income, right? You didn't have a W-2 that you were getting paid from a job. So you had to strengthen your own inner voice to strengthen your outer voice. What was that progress like for you?
It was, first off, leaving retail management when you were really good at your job and customers walked into your business and you just customer serviced the heck out of them and supported them as they walked in. I didn't realize as an entrepreneur that I was going to have to go find those clients to walk into my business. And so there was a lot of that inner voice coming up. I would say back like the first 2 years in my business, I was going to every networking event I could possibly find. I used to live in Las Vegas, Nevada. And I networked. When I first started my business, all I did was go out and network in the community. I went to every chamber event, every women's networking event, every association meeting that I could find. Mm-hmm. And those first 2 years, I got really known in the community, which was awesome. But I also wasn't ever sticking around in a conversation long enough for them to really get to know who I was. I was too busy, what I call like social butterfly connecting. I would be like, oh my gosh, Colleen, you need to come over here and meet Susie Q, and Susie Q, you need to come over here and meet Bob, and like, you need to come over here and meet Regina. And like, I was connecting everybody, and everybody was like, oh my gosh, Darlene, thank you so much for connecting me. Like, we're going to do business together. We're going to partner on this collaboration. We're going to do all these things. And I was like, why am I not getting business? Like, everybody knows who I am. I'm connecting with people. People are reaching out. Like, they're saying, thank you so much for this. Thank you so much for that. But no one's like referring business over to me. And I had what I call like a come into Jesus moment, like 2 years in a business, where I sat down and I was like, what am I doing wrong? Like, I'm making a little bit of money, like income. Like I had 3 clients that first year. I had a landscape company, an attorney, and like a quickie mart, like a grocery, like almost like a 7-Eleven, like store place, but it was a knockoff version. That's probably not the right way to say that. It was a different type of, it wasn't a big corporate account. They had their own smaller business. And I was like, I'm getting clients. They're all different types of industries. They have lots of different, like I'm working, like talking about different marketing strategies. Like every single conversation felt like it was different because they were totally different types of industries. And I remember like going, can I continue to do this? Like at the time I had a franchise, which comes with high royalty fees and different pieces like that. And I chose to walk away from the franchise at that point. I didn't feel in alignment with how I was being taught to market and to sell. It didn't feel like it was the way that I wanted to show up. So I left the franchise. And within like 4 months, I decided, you know what, I really do love what I do. I loved what I was doing, what I was starting to create, but it wasn't the right way. So I redesigned it to be what people might call now more of a feminine marketing approach. Like I was trying to do very masculine things that just did not feel in alignment. And, I recreated the structure that I now teach my one-to-one business clients. I have a framework called Attract and Stand Out, where I help my clients over a 6-month program really identify who their ideal clients are, what their niche is, what their message looks like, what's their story that they want to share to really stand out and have people see who they are. And I help them with their offer and their messaging and their their nurture sequence for how to really, nurture the people that come into their community so they can grow a profitable business and really bring that consistent income, which at the time I wasn't having consistency in my business. And so during that time though, I shifted my mindset, honestly. Like I had to start talking nicer to myself. I had to trust that if I showed up as myself, not who I was trying to be because of like what I was being taught inside the franchise, that I would grow my business. And when I shifted my mindset, I shifted how I was showing up. I actually started connecting with people, and people were like, Darlene, we actually want to learn about you. Like, you don't have to be so busy connecting everybody else. Like sit down for a second. It's okay to get still and say, let me share a little bit about how I work with my clients and how I support people. And that was like the big changing point for myself. Like that 2-year mark really gave me the confidence to go out there and start having deeper conversations and not staying so surface level.
That's so important in networking. And it's like that's going to be the number one nugget from today. You got to get out there and you've got to network and you've got to get past the surface level conversations. And you really need to get into the conversations with people that are more about what you do in your business and how you're different and how you support people, and maybe a client that you just worked with and what their success was or what they went through or whatever it may be. I always say I don't like to work with clients for long periods of time. It would be like having your children stay home after they're 18. I was always that mom that was like, I want to raise you to be able to be independent and an individual and go off on your own and learn all about like life. I love that, and I never was the crier of, oh my gosh, my children are all leaving home. So I'm the same with my clients. Unless you keep building something new that you want us to work on, what you need to do. You've already done it, so get out there and I'm just one of those people where I want them to continue growing and moving on. And I always tell my clients, someday I'm sure I'm going to hire you and you're going to be my coach, and that's what I'm looking for. I want people to succeed, to get out there and not be afraid to have those conversations. And conversations are good. Everyone needs to slow down a bit, right, Darlene? Like, slow down and really have the conversations. I had a conversation yesterday on Zoom with a lady and learned that we were both single mothers for a really long time. And I learned all about her because I started asking about kids and where she lived and what she does. And we just got into all this conversation and we had 5 minutes left to talk about what we do. But that was my favorite conversation.
And that's such an important part too. Like when we start sharing stories, whether it's on a networking call or we're at an event or wherever we're building relationships, there's so many places nowadays that we can, start to build that relationship, but we have to share stories. People connect to stories. We're 22 times more likely to remember somebody because of a story they shared, not because they're like, here's the 5 tips to blah, 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 blah. Like those are great and they're going to remember those and they might use them. But if you share a story, like oftentimes when I get on a call with somebody, 9 out of 10 times they're like, oh my gosh, I read your story on your website. I'm so sorry to hear about your mom, or I can't believe that you were a teen mom, or I'm a teen mom. I was a teen mom as well, or I was never a teen mom, but I've been a single parent for X amount of years. And I love how, you left retail and I like to think of it like I took a leap and the net appeared for me. Like I got lucky. I don't actually encourage any of my clients to ever leave their full-time job to start their business until they're making some consistent money in their business. And then we can step away from the full-time job. I did it kind of backwards. I didn't even have a coach back then, mind you. I wish I had somebody. Like it was definitely those first 2 years, I definitely should have kept my job. Like I was, I had a little bit of money from like losing my mom and different things. And so I was in a position where I was able to do that. I
don't know, Darlene, I think it gave you the fuel. For me, it was like, there is no other money, so you have to generate it. And it made me have a different mindset in generating income and providing than I would have had if I was straddling
the job.
I'm just saying.
It depends on the person for sure. Like I don't want anybody to think that entrepreneurship is easy, because it is probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my whole entire life. And I'm so blessed that I can say like I've been in business for 17 years because I have seen, especially as a coach, like I've seen so many coaches come in and like they look like I like to think of them as like Milli Vanilli. They're like one-hit wonders. They come in and it looks like they're doing all these amazing things. And I've worked on the back of a lot of different, like what I would call like big coaches that had like built big brands really quickly. And a lot of them are not in business anymore.
Mm-hmm. And they're gone.
It's because they didn't build the foundation to really grow their business. They came in, they got popular. They had a lot of people that were following what they were doing, and they didn't stick around because they don't have the foundation. They didn't have the messaging that was really clear. They didn't really do the hard work to really, tame the inner critic and deal with the physiological sensations that come up in our body. And they didn't have the confidence or the ability, I think, to consistently call people to take action and really help make an impact in the world. And those are all pieces that I talk with all my clients about to make sure, like, if we really focus on those 5 areas, we're going to be able to go to the next level, whether it's in our corporate life and we're talking with organizations and we want to get promoted or move up internally, or if we're starting our own business and we're just doing the work to get that next speaking opportunity, that next pitch to sign a big contract, whatever those things are. Like, we have to trust ourselves, so that we can go out there and our outer voice can share the message that we're really internalizing and we know we're worthy for.
For sure. So the 10 do's and don'ts for effective daring conversations, what are they going to find when they download that communication guide?
It's a fun little guide that I put together last year that really just gives you 5 things to say to really make an impact, and 5 things not to say when you're in those moments when you're kind of like, oh my gosh, did I just say that? Or did they say that to me? Like, how do I handle this conversation? They're just fun little tips that will get you started, whether you're having a conversation at a holiday party, or if you're in a corporate environment and you just want to work on, like, how do I say things in a different way to really grab people's attention? I think that's one of the most important things we want to do is, how do we grab attention and how do we say things in a way that are not hurtful, that are going to actually support and lift people up and help them on their journey versus tear them down. We've had plenty of times in our lives where people have, they tear us down and tell us maybe that we shouldn't do something. Like, I remember when I started my business, most of my family was like, you're leaving your retail job where you have 401k and benefits and bonuses, and you're going to go start a business. what are you doing? And I'm like, yes, I am. And like, watch me. Like
Yeah.
that was probably the fuel I had. Colleen, is someone told me I couldn't do it and I shouldn't do it. And I was like, well, watch me do it. And I'm going to prove you wrong because
Same thing happened to me. Yeah.
that's my personality. I'm like, oh yeah, you don't think I can do it? Let me show you.
Yeah. And then by example, by you doing that, other people are like, whoa, hey, I could do that too. Right. So believe it or not, people watch you more than they hear what you say. So pay attention to that. I think that's very important. We have to live the life that we are talking about and that we're saying to other people. And that's about, starting with strengthening ourselves, like you talked about. And then that helps us with our outer voice. So Darlene, I want everyone to grab that download of yours. I think that's fun. Like what 5 things to say and what 5 things not to say.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go download it just because I want to see what it's the 5 things not to say that are, because I think that's awesome. And I know you're at darlenehawley.com, so we can connect with you there. We have LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Make sure you guys are following her. I always say follow the guests because it's fun to kind of see what they do, what their life is like. You can get to know them a little bit more personally just by following them in a social feed, look at their stories, things like that. Maybe even reach out to Darlene on LinkedIn, let her know that you heard her on the podcast, and connect with her.
Let me know what's one of your takeaways from today's conversation. I play the most. I'm on LinkedIn like every day for the most part. And I play a little bit on Instagram. So if you're on one of those 2 platforms, come connect. I'd love to hear what your takeaway is from today's conversation or what you're up to and what's your next big, one of the things that I really learned is when we speak up, we also give permission to other people to start speaking up as well. So how are you going to be a part of the ripple effect, making an impact in this world, like leaving a legacy? Like what message do you have to share with the world? Because when you are invited to speak up, like all of a sudden other people are watching you and they're going to start speaking up too.
Love it. For my listeners, you're the only you that's ever been. You're the only you that's ever going to be. So do you want to kind of go through life for the rest of your life? Life is short. You just heard Darlene's mom, passed away at 49. We never know when it's our time. So are there things and changes in your life? Do you want to speak up more? Do you want to strengthen that inner voice? Contact Darlene. Work with her. Let her help you strengthen that voice for yourself. Are you looking to get promoted, but you don't know how to do it? You're not really sure you have that voice to stand on yet that's strong enough for you to do that. This is why there are coaches out there like Darlene that can help you through that. And the more that you stand up, the more you speak out, you will attract people. Those are my favorite businesses, the ones that say, yeah, I don't do a lot of fishing. I just really get a lot of referrals and people just find me and, contact me and want to work with me. So that's like getting rid of the hustle, is what that really becomes. And
there's no hustle and grinding in my world. Like those are 2 words that I took out of my vocabulary.
I love that. And I'm sure many people listening today want to take that out of theirs too, Darlene. So reach out to Darlene Hawley at darlenehawley.com. Connect with her on all of her links. We've got them all below. All you have to do is just click on it with your finger and you can get to it, especially because most of us, 85% of us listen to podcasts on our phones. So it's just right there for you to click on it and you'll go right to it. So Darlene, thank you so much for being a guest today on today's show. And one last question, what book are you reading right now?
Oh my gosh, what book am I reading? I have been reading fun novels. Like I usually during the holidays and then the summer, I like to just get fun books from the library. So I've been reading Lucy Score. She has I'm going to totally draw a blank on the name of it, but she has a 3-part, like a 3-book series that came out, and the 3rd book was just released last month. And so I just finished the 3rd one, and it's so good. If you love like a fun read, look up Lucy Score and get the last 3 books that she wrote. She probably read them
That's
too.
awesome.
But the ones that she wrote, those are fun.
That's awesome. And one more time, your podcast, you said you're a podcast host. What's the name of your podcast for our listeners to go look it up?
Yeah, I am the host of the Attract and Stand Out podcast, where we interview leaders as well as entrepreneurs to really help find their voice and hear their story of how they started their entrepreneurship journey or how they became leaders in the organization, and what are some of the tips to success and the things that maybe they failed at that they learned and from them as well too.
Attract and Stand Out. Go look for that podcast, download it. That's a great way for you to start learning more about how to build that inner voice too. So, Darlene, thank you again so much for being on today's show. And to all of you, thank you for making us the top 1% global podcast in the world. We appreciate you. We love you. We've been loyal to you since 2019. Thank you for being loyal to us. And until next time, be you and be strong. Bye-bye for now.
We hope you enjoyed our show today, as our guests shared their secrets on designing their life by taking the necessary leaps to expand their influence and attract the right people and clients into their lives. To start these easy steps for yourself, be sure to visit www.colleenbiggs.net/freebies to download the 7 ways to increase your exposure today.